You're listening to Smart Moves with your hosts, Ann Riley Caldwell and Matt Wilson.
Hey, welcome to Smart Moves with Matt and Ann Riley. We are here to help you make smart and strategic choices when it comes to buying and selling homes in Middle Tennessee, all things finances, and maybe even some life stuff too. I'm Ann Riley Caldwell, also known as Not Your Ordinary Agent. I'm a realtor here in the Middle Tennessee market, and I'm here with Matt Wilson.
And I'm Matt Wilson, mortgage guy, and the author of the world-famous book, How to Make Getting a Mortgage Not Suck.
So today we have an exciting topic, and it is the 5 biggest mistakes that home buyers make. And we're going to teach you how to dodge those like a pro. Because I love sports. I think he loves sports. So you're going to get a lot of sports analogies probably.
Absolutely. Roll Tide. We'll go ahead and knock out 3/4 of our audience right from the rip.
Oh, no. Okay, well, I just brought them all back because those are words you'll never hear me say. But we like each other anyway.
It's proof that you can be on different teams and still be friends.
That's right. I'm more go Oregon, go Clemson. So whatever that buys us, which is probably not much, but that's all right. So anyway, 5 biggest mistakes home buyers make. So we've got number 1 here called starting the search before the strategy. So I have a lot of buyers who call me and just say, hey, I want to buy a home, which is great. You can always call me and say, hey, I want to buy a home. But the main thing is I love strategy. I love game planning. And so it's very important that before we just jump into things, we need to have a strategy. So I love walking everybody through the steps that it takes to buy a home. As fun as we can make it. And one of the first things that I tell people is it doesn't do any good to fall in love with the $500,000 house if you can only afford $400,000 house. So anyway, it's not a great start because the heartbreak is just waiting to happen there. So one of the first things I do is I ask people a few questions and then I kick them over to Matt. And then what does Matt do?
I break hearts, basically. From there is what usually happens. Because as it turns out, it's not that easy to purchase $1 million house and have an ideal monthly payment of $1,500 unless you're putting down around $850,000, give or take. And even then, the taxes might be a little bit of a killer for you. I can't tell you how many times I have people that I talk to and they found the home of their dreams on Zillow or Realtor or whatever website they chose to go on that day. And the thing that they always come up with is usually a ridiculous payment expectation. And the story typically goes something like this. Hi, I work part-time as a butterfly farmer at Walmart. I make $10 an hour and I want to buy this $1 million house. Unfortunately, real life is not house hunters. So a lot of times that leads to just disappointment for all of us. So the big thing is like, make sure before you go out and look at houses, you're happy, window shop all you want, but before you get serious about looking at houses and before you ask Ann Riley to take you around all of God's creation to see the things, you want to make sure that you've got a really good grasp with the lender of what your budget's going to be, like what you're able to purchase and whether or not you want to purchase at that price. Because if you get the payment and you realize that payment is a bit hairy for your financial goals, then you probably want to consider backing down what you're doing so that you don't have to eat dog food for dinner after you buy the house.
Yeah, we're anti-dog food here. Unless you have a dog, then go for it.
My dog's anti-dog food.
Oh, okay. Well, some dogs are. I've heard farmers' dog is good. We are not sponsored by them, but I'll just throw that out there. So we always need a game plan. So that's one of the things I feel like I specialize in is helping people come up with the steps, which, in some ways don't change a whole lot, but for every person there is strategy. It depends on what's going on in the market, which is why Matt and I keep up with what's going on in the market. What worked 3 months ago probably doesn't work today and probably won't work 3 months from now. When it comes to negotiation, when it comes to strategy, when it comes to what type of situation are we in, are you likely to have multiple offers, all things that we will talk about as we go on this podcast. But it's really important to, be realistic and to really understand as much as possible up front. And then we will continue to educate you as we walk through the process with you. So don't worry about that. So mistake number 2, I just had a phone conversation with a buyer the other day about this one, trusting a quick online pre-approval. They had gone online and they were like, I'm pre-approved. And I said, what did you do? And they said, oh, I just answered a few basic questions and all of a sudden I got a pre-approval letter. I said, yeah, no, we're not going to do that one. So why are we not going to do that one, Matt?
Here's the thing about online fast pre-approvals. The faster it is, the less accurate it is. And if they haven't looked at your pay stubs, if they haven't looked at your W-2s, if they haven't looked at your bank statements, you don't know whether or not that's actually going to hold up or not. Because as it turns out, most fry chefs at McDonald's, no offense to them, don't make $200,000 a year. But if you put in that you do, it's going to say you qualify for the loan more than likely. If you put in that you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars to put down and you don't in real life, they're going to say you're pre-approved, but you're not really. So if the lender is not actually looking at your documentation to, corroborate everything and validate everything that you're saying, there's no way to officially say that you're pre-approved. Even then, even if you make a certain amount of money, we have to follow the underwriting guidelines, which are usually a little less than straightforward on how much of that income was actually permissible for us to count for your effective income for your qualifying for a loan. So, all that to say, it's a multi-$100,000 move for most families. Take the time to do the due diligence and make sure things are good before you go out and spend thousands of dollars on inspections and appraisals and earnest money and things like that, only to find out that your whole house plans were built on, straw, and the big bad lone wolf comes and blows it all down for you.
Yeah, absolutely, because so many people go out and they get excited. I mean, I personally, one of the ways I may do things differently than other people is I'm not going to let you write an offer without being pre-approved. Pretty much in Middle Tennessee, you're not going to get a seller to take your offer without a letter from a lender. And, the stronger that letter is, the better. And we're going to do a whole podcast episode about getting pre-approved, so don't you worry. But one of the things I love about New American Funding, where Matt is the loan officer, branch manager, etc., is that they, whenever possible, try to underwrite you. Is that correct? So I'll let you explain the difference between pre-qual, pre-approval, pre-underwrite, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a pre-qualification is really what you have if the internet says that you're good to go in 5 minutes or less. That's just a pre-qualification. It's the weakest of all of them. To be honest with you, if you printed it out, it may as well be toilet paper from a quality standpoint. It's cool to give you a reference point, but don't use it to write an offer on a house. A pre-approval should mean that the lender has looked at your documents and has run it through the automated underwriting system, which is just fancy pants way of saying that the computer did it. The underwritten pre-approval, though, is like highest tier, second only to cash. That's where you want to go with things if you at all can. The reason for that is the underwriter is the human being that validates that me as the loan officer, that I calculated your income right and that your assets are where they should be and all that sort of thing. They're going to approve things at the end of the loan. They're going to be the ones that have the final say on whether you get to buy the house or not. So drag them up to the front of the process. That way you're already good to go. As long as you don't quit your job, go spend all your money in Vegas or something like that. Like, you're golden. And it's only up to the house then. The house is then going to have to appraise and home inspection's got to be good and that sort of thing. But you're good. The other benefit there is sellers are not used to seeing somebody with a completely underwritten pre-approval, which puts you at the top of the tier. Like, in your experience, what have you seen that turn into for competitive offer situations?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things I'm able to say to the listing agent is this isn't just a pre-approval. This is actually pre-underwritten, and all they need to see is a contract. And I used that the other day by happenstance on one of our clients that we have in common. And, I really felt like the listing agent understood it and went, oh, okay, that's great. Because it is a higher level. There's less risk to being told as you get into the transaction, and particularly a few days before closing, hey, this isn't actually going to happen because of finances. It also, one of the things I see Matt do the best of anybody I've ever seen, in all honesty, is walk people through their options and explain things to them in great detail. And we've got several clients right now that could go both FHA or conventional. If you don't know what that is, we'll talk about that in an episode. But there's different loan types out there, and there's different fees associated with them, correct? There's different amounts that you can get pre-approved for. There's a slightly different payment. I mean, there's some differences between those, and people automatically think conventional is better. Matt can tell you that's not always the case. But anyway, he gives people options. He tells them why they are the options. He breaks down the numbers, the payments, the numbers behind the numbers, to help people make a real decision. And, you know, it also makes a difference when you go to look at certain houses as to certain things, so it can make a difference. But long story short, having somebody really walk through those numbers with you, and to do that so that you're also getting pre-written in the process, there's no reason not to do that. You have to do it sooner rather than later. You have to do it later. You might as well do it sooner. So there are fewer surprises, so that when you find a house that you like, if it's anywhere close to the top of your quote budget, you know, I send it to Matt, and he looks at the taxes and looks at all the things behind the scenes. If there's an HOA, you know, we really try to dig in on the details so that people know, if they're saying yes to this house, what does yes really mean? Which takes us to mistake number 3, underestimating the total costs. So that was actually a good segue. We didn't plan that. So
Nice.
So here, yes. So, you know, people, okay, the one myth that we have to absolutely obliterate and get rid of, because I cannot tell you, out of, I think I have 5 or 6 buyer clients right now, and at least 2 of them, if not 3 of them, actually I'm going to say 3 of them, said to me, I don't have a 20% down payment. And I said, why do you think you need a 20% down payment? 3 out of 5 people still think this today. And I'm just like, okay, we need to back up, and you don't need 20%. And they're like, what do you mean I don't need 20%? So then I kick them over to Matt to explain to them that they need way less than 20%.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that if nothing else out there is preventing homeownership dreams for people, that's the thing. Because, like, you know, the median home prices, you could say better than I could, but they've gone up exponentially over the last 5 to 10 years here. So 20% has too. That being said, you can get into a house with down payment assistance and things like that. You don't even have to be a first-time home buyer, and you can get into a house for $0 down. But there's a difference between $0 down and $0 out of pocket. That's another thing that a lot of people kind of get twisted just a little bit there. And it's an easy mistake to make, but there's 3 numbers you need to know whenever it comes to how much cash you need available as a buyer. The first one is down payment. That's your skin in the game. That one's self-explanatory. I think everybody gets it. The second is closing costs, which don't just consist of taxes, but that's a big portion of them. It's lender fees, title fees, things like that. But think of it kind of similar to, you go buy anything and there's sales tax on it. Same thing with a house. Thankfully, you know, speaking for Tennessee here, the closing costs are substantially less than the sales taxes are if you just go buy a bottle of water or, you know, Coke or something. But the cash to close is the number you care about the most as a consumer, because that's the down payment plus your closing costs. That's how much money you actually need to bring to the table the day that you're going to get the house. That's yours. So, you know, with that, there's still ways that you can get it helped out with. You know, like I said, down payment assistance is going to cover you on the down payment front if you need it to. The other thing is you can potentially have the seller pay closing costs. Matter of fact, having a buyer underwritten at one point last year for me resulted in him getting $8,000 in closing costs paid versus another offer that wasn't requesting that. They took his because he was underwritten, and it was technically $8,000 less, and that went towards his closing costs. So just taking that extra few minutes there, you know, I don't know. You can never tell if somebody got the absolute lowest possible rate they could have had at that time. But I do know that my process saved him $8,000 in that situation and helped his cash to close situation be just a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, there's just so much to it that's too hard to understand, and most people's eyes glaze over. But, I mean, both Matt and I are great at answering questions. That's one of our fortes, and we will give you all the details if you want every single detail. And we also will give you the fewest details that you want, and usually everything in between. So it really just depends on the people, how much they really want to learn about the process. I like for people to learn as much as possible, because I have a lot of people who bought houses before, obviously, and they come to me and say, it was just a blur, and I didn't help them because I didn't know them at the time, but I'm helping them now, or they've relocated here, and it's just like, I didn't learn anything. I didn't even know what I was signing half the time. I'm like, oh no, it shouldn't be like that. You really need to know what you're signing, because at the end of the day, you're signing it. I always say to people, it's not my house, it's not my money. I will answer all your questions. I will get as many details for you as I can. I will give you my opinion if you want to hear it. But what you do with all of that is up to you. Like, he and I are not making your payment. He and I are not living in your house. So at the end of the day, we're just here to guide you through the process, make you feel comfortable with everything. And I tell people when they say, well, what should I offer? I say, make your best offer so that when you go to sleep tonight, you can sleep, because you either aren't staying awake regretting that you made the offer because you can't afford it, or you don't really love the house or whatever, and you also know that you made the best offer that you could, that if I tell you tomorrow they did not accept your offer, especially if it's a multiple offer situation, you can still sleep well knowing you gave it your best shot. So that's what I always tell people, because there's a middle ground where you can find those two things, and when you're in that middle ground, that house was either meant to be yours or it wasn't, and we'll go find another one. But I think we're both really good at talking through the costs. There's moving costs, you've got to get insurance quotes. I mean, there's different things that we walk you through step by step by step that all goes into finances. That Matt's also really good at making sure people have enough money to actually move into their house. Like, do you have enough money for your moving expenses? When people are talking about how much do I want to put down, because there's a minimum amount, which could be zero, but usually there's a minimum amount, but obviously you can put down more. He walks you through the pros and cons of putting down more versus less. He walks you through possibly buying down your interest rate. For people that have extra money that want to try to potentially use it as part of the transaction, he is fantastic at helping you figure out, if you move it over here versus over here, what does that look like for you at closing, and what does that look like for you moving forward and making the payments that you have to make until you pay it off. So mistake number 4, getting emotionally attached too soon to a house. So you walk in a house, it smells awesome, you can see yourself living there. I know people will love it when they start trying to put their furniture in the house. They're standing in the living room trying to figure out the 14 ways their couch will or won't fit. I've actually had people say, and I've also worked with the builder. I worked obviously with people who list their homes too, so I hear things and see things even if they're not my buyer clients. I literally have people walk in and go, couch won't fit, we can't possibly live here. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, can you not buy another couch? I'm just like, I wouldn't give up the whole house just to salvage the one couch that you're probably going to replace in 10 years. But hey, not my house, not my couch, so it's all good. But again, the cracked foundation, you may or may not want to tackle that one. There's just things, it's great when people's eyes light up. For me personally, every place I've ever lived, even apartments when I was in law school, when I was living in places temporarily, etc., as soon as I walked in, I knew. I'm like, this is the place for me. That doesn't happen for everybody, but I think it happens for a lot of people, or at least they can definitely see themselves wanting to live there. And so that's an awesome thing. But I have had more inspection issues lately. It's just every house has something wrong with it, and some houses have more than others, and there's some things that we just cannot see by looking at it until the home inspector goes there. And then people have to make a partly emotional but also very rational decision on which of these things are going to be deal breakers and which of these things are not. Which of these things are going to cost me money and do I have it, and which of these things is the seller going to contribute towards. So there's a whole process that goes into it. And then, it's just going back to the getting pre-approved, because you don't want to get emotionally attached to a house that you already know out of the gate you can't afford. And then the other things, sometimes things just happen. But anyway, I think Matt's seen a few broken hearts too by people not getting what they thought they wanted. But they usually find something else, and it goes away like all heartbreaks. But hopefully,
it's just a little country song to it beforehand.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, totally. I mean, home inspections right now are a doozy. I think about just under half of the deals that I've had start in recent history have also had to restart in recent history on a new house because they weren't totally satisfied with the home inspection. Here's the thing. Ultimately, like Ann Riley said a few minutes ago, it's your house. It's your money. Do with it what you want. She could tell you what's a big deal and not in most cases. If you got a hole in the drywall because somebody closed the door too hard one time, that's probably not that big a deal. I got toddlers in the house, so I got one of those myself, so I got to patch up. If you've got, one of the walls is sagging because the foundation's giving on that side, that's probably something worth considering. That's for sure. But, here's the thing. In my personal experience, like I bought a house back in 2020. And of course, 2020, there was like 3 houses for sale altogether. So I kind of had to take what I could find. But anyway, when I bought it, like I knew going into it that the air conditioner was old enough that it could probably vote. It was probably old enough that it could, vote and drink. But it still cooled the house. Everything was cool for the time being. I just knew that it was on its way out. And on the other hand, the rest of the house was renovated. It had a brand new roof on top. And it wasn't one of those horror story renovations either. I wouldn't have bought it. It was a decently done renovation. So the bones were there, the cosmetics were more or less there, and the roof was there, but the air conditioner wasn't. So I just planned for the air conditioner to go out. And of course, inevitably, it did after a few years. But since I'd planned for it to go out, I put a new air conditioner in. I just saved along the way, so I had money to do that with. That's the big thing with homeownership to keep in mind is you're not going to have everything working all the time. You're going to have lots of situations where something breaks. There's the opportunity for that. So you just got to plan for it. And that's where, when we're planning your mortgage, we want to make sure that we build margin in there for you so that you're not spending every penny you got just in case you got to replace an ice maker one day.
Yeah, absolutely. So in case you haven't realized that there's a lot that goes into all this, but again, that's why we're here. Okay, mistake number 5. Oh, Matt's going to love this one. Assuming the market works like it did 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about 5 days ago?
Right, yeah. We don't even know what to say it's going to look like in 5 days right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, we hear it all. So, yeah, there's lots of people. Let me just say this too. Headlines in the news, usually not accurate. Headlines in the news are usually national, which in case you haven't figured out yet, real estate is uber local, at least somewhat local. Sometimes it's this local, sometimes, but still. Every county in Middle Tennessee is different, which is why I work them all and why I know them all. But, thinking that comparing things to what they used to be or what you wish they were or what you think they could be or what the latest pundit said that in 2026 on April 14th they're going to be. Horrible strategy because, we can't go backwards in life as well as in mortgages and in homes that were available and what they cost. We can only go forward and things change. It took me a while to figure out mortgage rates don't just change at the end of the day like the stock market. They change, or whatever, that closes at the end of the day and then you have a number. So, it changes even throughout every single day, which makes, we won't even get into that topic, but we'll go down a whole rabbit trail if I open that door for Matt. But, inventory, changes. Seasons literally change. Spring is very different than every single winter. Even though last spring may not be the same as this spring and last winter may not be the same as last winter, there are certain cycles in the market that certain times of the year things more than likely happen about the same. until you have what we call the unicorn years, when everything just went off the rails and interest rates were a place they never should have been, very low. And I had one house in Madison that had 40 offers on it. I had to read 40 offers and put together a spreadsheet. So, it was nuts.
I bet you wish you had ChatGPT.
I did wish I had ChatGPT. I did not know it. I don't think
it did that yet.
I don't think it did that yet. I didn't know about it. I don't think probably right before it even existed. I think at the end of 2022, I was told. I love ChatGPT now. Now we would be feeding all kinds of stuff in there. Even though I would check it because it's not always right when it does math, I found. But anyway,
Same.
Yeah. So but the market doesn't work the same as it did 5 years ago. Or 5 months ago. I mean, it really is, with interest, I would say interest rates change the market faster than anything. Do you agree or disagree?
100%. Yeah. I think that interest rates drive the bus because that's what caused, I think, the pandemonium of 2020 and 2021, because you could go buy a house essentially for borrowing money for free. I mean, inflation since then has been exponentially higher than what interest rates were at that point in time. And with that being the case, like, here's the thing. Every percent that interest rates drop, it changes the number of available buyers for a given $100,000 price increment by about 1 million, which is just a nutty number to think about. That means that, every time the interest rates drop by 1%, there's 1 million more people trying to buy the same price point house you are. But
yeah, it's crazy.
Every time they raise by 1%, 1 million people get swept out of your price point. And like right now, my favorite headline in recent history has been that one talking about how there's like 500,000 more houses for sale or sellers than buyers or something, some such. You may know it a little better, but basically, here's my thing with that. We're also 4 million homes behind. The media has been spinning it up like we're in some sort of housing crisis and a catastrophe is about to happen. But when it comes down to it, there's still a net difference of what we need to have of 3.5 million homes nationally that it's going to take several more years to catch up with. So all that to say, like, you can take one data point and make it sound incredible or make it sound horrific, but at the end of the day, all of these people that are trying to tell you that they can predict the future are playing weatherman, and they're just as accurate as your local one is. 50% of the time, you're going to put on your rain boots and look like an idiot walking around town while it's sunny.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is always a little bit of truth behind the numbers, but the problem is you can't just isolate one number and focus on that one thing and then make predictions about what the market's going to do. There's definitely analysis. There's things sometimes that when you do this full time that you just feel like in your gut. Like when I first started doing this, things were much more predictable and I was 90+% right. Now it's like, I don't know. I mean, I know, but I don't know from like any given moment. Like I cannot tell you, like I have some predictions coming about what's going to happen this summer based on lots of data, lots of analysis, lots of things that ChatGPT did help me with. But I know it too because I work all over. But it's interesting because there's just so much that goes into it. And we do everything we can to stay on top of it. We do everything that we can to prepare, whether, certain things go up, certain things go down, demand, whatever. All we can do, and that's why it's important. We always tell people start talking to us 3 to 6 months before you're ready to do something. I had somebody call me the other day, and Matt and I are closing it next week. And, it was like, I'm ready right now. Talked to Matt. 2 days later, she was ready. It was great. So, yes, you can call us like the day before. But for people that have questions, for people that can't just do something today, I think my record is I'm still talking to somebody 4 years after I first talked to them, and they're just about ready to finally talk to Matt. So yes, we will stick with you. Yes, if you need a plan, if you can't just go out and buy a home right now because you got credit issues, we're definitely here to walk that journey with you and give you advice. And if you're ready to go now, then we definitely will jump in with you right now, and we will get you up and going ASAP, and everything in between. But all that to say, talking to us through the process, if there are options, if you're not waiting for a lease to be up, things like that you can't really time the market. It's like trying to time the stock market. Like, that fails for the huge majority of people. They get lucky once or twice. But it's like, if you're tired of paying rent, if you've got a little bit of money, if your credit score is decent, then let's at least try. All we can do is try. And if you're not ready, he and I will put you on a path to get you ready.
Yeah. I will say that in my mortgage career, in thousands of applications, I've never denied anybody. They've denied themselves. I've told plenty that they can't do it today, but we'll always put together a plan that tells you how to get there tomorrow, figuratively speaking. Maybe it's literally, but most of the time it's figurative. So, when it comes down to it, you've got the ability to purchase a home. It's just a matter of getting yourself the rest of the way in position if you don't today. Also, spoiler alert, I don't bite. Mortgage people typically don't. But people try to. That's why I dress like this now. I used to be a scary guy in a suit. When Ann Riley and I first met, I was the dude in the suit looking like a lawyer or something. And ironically, wasn't the lawyer in that conversation, was I?
No.
So
No, that was me.
Anyway.
Who doesn't dress like an attorney?
So, I'm just a normal guy, just like you are. Ann Riley's just a normal lady, just like you are. You get what I'm trying to say. And with that being the case, we're just there to help you. So we can talk to you whenever. And if it needs to be a rush deal, it can. But it's a whole lot more peaceful for everybody if you plan ahead.
Yep, for sure. So on a recap here, if you're thinking about buying a home, the 5 mistakes were: don't start without a plan, don't trust a quick online pre-approval, budget more for the house than you think, don't fall in love too fast. That's with the house. The other stuff we're probably not qualified to talk about. And don't assume the market owes you any deals. So anyway, if you want to get a hold of us, I'm Ann Riley Caldwell, Not Your Ordinary Agent. You can go to notyourordinaryagent.com, or you can reach out to me at 615-930-0313.
And I am Matt Wilson, mortgage advisor, branch manager, author, dad. Anyway, you can catch me at matt.wilson@nafinc.com, or you can catch me at my phone number, 931-224-3150.
Perfect. Until next time, make your next move a smart one.